Welcome to Coffee with Joe for April 29th, 2011. Joe, good to see you
Pete,
again.
salute, Pete, to you.
It's been a little while there. Pick up the conversation about current events in the further decline of the debt money system, I guess we could call this installment. Standard & Poor's is threatening to downgrade the bond rating of
Right.
U.S. Treasury bonds, the safest security, the safest investment on the planet up till now, threatened with a downgrade.
I'm sorry, Pete. I'm a total cynic when it comes to the financial services industry, of which I include the ratings agencies as part of the financial services industry, and a big part of what the cause of the financial crisis that came out of the debt money system reaching its point of debt
I
saturation.
mean,
Okay.
certainly in terms of the repackaging of the toxic mortgage securities, their fraud was rampant.
Their fraud was rampant, and Pete, that's a really good point right there because, see, to me, when I look at S&P, I get the old your best defense is a good offense, you know, and
Yeah.
and so we have the situation here where the government, which has been forced by virtue of the collapse of the national economy to be in its deficit spending mode, okay, that government has tried to put in place through the Dodd-Frank bill, entities that are going to be able to not only prevent this from happening in the future, in theory, Pete, okay, but also to investigate, what went wrong, in this. And so naturally, one of the targets has to be, those in the financial services industry, and especially including the ratings agencies. So you have a bill that passed that clearly has in its sights the ratings agencies. What do the ratings agencies do? Well, the rating agencies, in this case S&P, comes out and says, unless the government can get its house in order and set some agreed upon budgetary constraints that really represent austerity within government, Pete. Okay, we may downgrade their debt. Of course, if they downgrade their debt, it could have a negative effect on taxpayers, Pete, of all people. Okay, on taxpayers. So they
Right.
make that threat to me as a matter of protecting themselves, because in order for the government to get its house in order, one of the things it has to do is cut back on funding the kind of things like investigations of, who caused the financial crisis. Elizabeth Warren was on Jon Stewart a night or two ago. She said, hey, we passed this bill, but, now the same groups that were out there caused all the crisis are back there in Congress lobbying them against there being any money available for us to carry out our mandate. So you have S&P acting, again to protect itself. How? By threatening, the government with a downgrade of its debt if it doesn't get its house in order and reduce
We'll
its
shut down the
expenditures.
system. We'll shut down the system.
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
close it down,
Exactly. So to me, that's my take. That's my take on it, Pete. It has no meaning in the real world because we can't default, because we do issue our own debts in our own currency, and we are a currency issuing, monetarily sovereign nation. But worse than that, it's the shot across the bow of whatever you do, don't try to think about finding anything wrong with us, because if you do, we're in charge here. Was it the senator from Illinois said the banks run this town?
But in terms of the big bank that's running this town, we have good news. The Federal Reserve is increasing their transparency. The first time ever that a Fed board chair gave a press conference where reporters could ask questions. Pretty soon it's all going to be out in the open, Joe, and we can fix this thing, right?
Well, you know what, Pete? Yeah. Well, the cynic in me laughs at the fact that it's up to the bank to call the press conference. It's not like the quarterly report to the Congress. If you had some people in the Congress that were able to ask questions, but something could come out of it, Pete. Because there were some questions about, well, wait a minute, are your policies working? And that, that's a really a kind of a key question for the public. It was Bernanke's chance to get out there and say, because we're concerned about inflation, we're not going to be working so seriously about targeting employment.
Yes.
So what does that mean, Pete? That means that whatever little bit that we've gained, and I, by the way, I don't even know that we've gained anything, but we've gained a little bit in terms of job creation. Okay, that's going to go by the wayside because we're worried about inflation. What inflation are we worried about? We're worried about the inflation that the Fed caused, by pumping. And almost, if you go back and see Bernanke's presentation on why he's doing the 600 billion and the other stuff on QE2, it was so that we could have an effect on stock prices. And for the effect on stock prices is they're up. The effect on the commodity prices is they're up. Why? Because they've thrown, the government, has basically, liquefied the money system and enable that stuff to happen. So they've been successful. They're driving up the prices of commodities, and people that own those commodities are feeling really good about the economy. But the people that use those commodities are feeling dreadful about the economy. They've lost their jobs. What it really means, Pete, is that the Fed can do nothing about either employment or inflation. In reality, Pete, okay? It can do nothing about controlling prices or seeing that people get employed. They just don't have the tools to do it under this system. So to me, that's the only good thing that could possibly come out of some real transparency, Pete, is if we can actually see the fact that you guys actually don't have the tools to fix the economy. Do you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President? And for them to say, no, we don't. And then we can start talking about alternatives, Pete, like not issuing debt when we issue money. That would take care of the whole problem right there.
Provocative and thoughtful as always. Thanks. I've missed your counsel, and look forward to hearing more of it soon.
Yeah, let's do this again soon, Pete.
Okay, Joe. See ya.
All right, thanks, Pete. Ciao.